Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're zeroing in on a massive piece of the sustainability puzzle for the metals and mining industry. We're going to completely demystify the Tailings Storage Facility inventory table requirements, the ones explicitly laid out in the SASB Metals and Mining Standard. Look, if you're involved in reporting, investing, or operations, you know this stuff. But understanding the exact, precise anatomy of this disclosure, that is absolutely essential. Let's get right into it.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We've got 1. The high stakes of tailings. 2. Anatomy of the inventory table. 3. Core identity and operations. 4. Engineering, capacity, and storage. 5. Assessing risk and review. And finally, 6. Emergency preparedness and response.
Section 1. The high stakes of tailings.
Right, so before we get bogged down in the exact reporting columns, we really need to anchor ourselves in why this data matters so much. You already know the mining industry faces huge operational hazards, specifically around the structural integrity of tailings storage facilities, or TSFs. This quote directly from the SASB Standards Topic Summary hits the nail on the head. A catastrophic failure doesn't just mean a bad day at the office. It leads to severe financial losses and deep, lasting environmental impacts. So this inventory we're talking about, it isn't just bureaucratic paperwork. It's literally a critical safety tool designed to protect your social license to operate. Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of the Inventory Table. So let's see how this builds the foundation for the entire compliance framework. If you're a compliance officer or an investor, mastering just these 12 must-report metrics, that's your golden ticket to complete TSF transparency. SASB basically took the vast, dizzying complexities of tailings management and distilled them down into 12 highly precise data points. And yes, they must be disclosed for every single facility an entity operates.
To keep all this organized, SASB recommends using a concrete column-by-column inventory table to really ground those 12 metrics. It follows a highly logical progression, starting from just the facility name all the way down to site-specific emergency plans. What's brilliant here is that it forces standardization across the entire industry. This means an investor can take a facility in South America and compare it apples to apples against a facility in Australia using the exact same yardstick. All right, Section 3, Core Identity and Operations.
To keep from totally overwhelming you with all 12 metrics at once, we've chunked them into a few logical buckets. Metrics 1 through 4 answer the very simple who, where, and what status of your tailings facility. Metric 1, just the facility name or identifier. Super simple. Metric 2 is the location. But wait, it strictly must include the operating country, which is absolutely vital for understanding jurisdictional risk. Metric 3 demands clarity on ownership status. Basically, are you the actual operator as defined by the Global Industry Standard on Tailings Management, or GIST? And finally, Metric 4 asks for the operational status. Is the facility active, inactive and under maintenance, or entirely closed? And remember, even closed facilities must be reported, because the environmental risk doesn't just magically disappear when operations stop.
Okay, Section 4, Engineering, Capacity, and Storage.
Now we're shifting gears from basic identity to the actual physical realities of the facility. Metrics 5, 6, and 7 give investors immediate, concrete insight into the physical scale and the structural approach of the storage facility. We are talking about the construction method, the maximum permitted storage capacity in metric tons, and the current quantity of tailings stored, also measured in metric tons. Let's zoom in on metric 5 for a second. The standard explicitly requires you to define the construction method using the specific International Council on Mining and Metals, or ICMM, categories. You've got to state whether the dam is built using an upstream, downstream, or centerline method. Now, as you know, these aren't just arbitrary engineering terms. They carry vastly different risk profiles. Upstream is very different from downstream. Now, if your facility happens to use a method that doesn't fit neatly into these 3 buckets, you must select Other and provide a brief, crystal clear description of the construction type.
Then we have this crucial comparison. Comparing maximum capacity, that's metric 6, to current storage, metric 7, tells stakeholders exactly how much breathing room a facility has left. Think about it. If a facility has a maximum permitted capacity of 10 million metric tons, and it currently stores 9.8 million, an investor or a local community member instantly knows, wow, this facility is right on the edge of its absolute regulatory and engineering limit. It's incredibly revealing.
Section 5, Assessing Risk and Review.
Okay, now we reach what is arguably the most critical chapter, classifying risk and ensuring real independent oversight. Metrics 8 and 9 demand total transparency around the potential severity of a failure, and they prove that third parties, people who have never operated the facility, are actually checking the math. Metric 8 requires the consequence classification of the facility based on the GISTM framework, which categorizes the potential impact of a failure. Then, Metric 9 requires the exact date of the most recent independent technical review. And SASB is super strict here. A review is only considered independent if it's conducted by third parties who have never, ever been directly involved with the design or operation of that specific facility.
So that begs the question, what exactly happens when that independent technical review yields material findings related to the safety of the facility? Well, if that independent review uncovers safety issues, the reporting requirements immediately escalate. This escalation covers metrics 10 and 11, basically forcing operators to publicly state if material safety findings exist, and more importantly, if they've acted to fix them. For metric 10, if the review finds material safety issues, the entity must report a simple yes or no, no waffling. If they answer yes, metric 11 kicks in. They must then disclose whether mitigation measures have been implemented to reduce that risk. But get this, it's not just any mitigation. It has to meet a very specific, rigorous standard known as ALRRP. Let's dive into this acronym for a second. ALRAP. If you have material findings, SASB wants to know if your mitigation measures meet this standard. As low as reasonably practicable. According to the standard, this means the risk must be mitigated to a level where the cost, time, or effort involved in reducing the risk any further would be grossly disproportionate to the safety benefit gained. You have to answer yes or no on whether ALRAP mitigation has been achieved. And you also have the option to provide a summary of what those measures actually look like in practice.
Section 6. Emergency Preparedness and Response.
Finally, we arrive at the very last metric, which addresses the absolute worst-case scenario. Metric 12 requires a simple yes or no on whether a site-specific Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan, or EPRP, is currently in place. This is your chance to demonstrate that you are fully ready to minimize consequences if the unthinkable actually happens. It cannot, I repeat, cannot be a generic company-wide policy you just pull off the shelf. It must be specific to the unique geography, the local community, and the specific risks of that exact site, fully in accordance with GSTM. And look, a compliant EPRP isn't just a dusty binder sitting on a manager's desk. It requires active, documented engagement. According to the standard, your approach to developing these plans must involve actually engaging with employees and contractors on the ground. It requires coordinating actively with public sector agencies and first responders. You've got to inform local authorities and institutions. And critically, you have to conduct actual physical emergency response tests and evacuation exercises. Why? To ensure that if a tailings facility fails, the loss of life and environmental damage is minimized as much as humanly possible. So, by viewing the SASB inventory table through this four-part anatomy, identity, engineering, risk, and response, you can really confidently evaluate both facility safety and operational transparency. These 12 metrics take the incredibly complex, highly specialized world of tailings storage facilities and create a standardized, comparable, and honestly deeply revealing picture of how an operator is managing their environmental and social risks. As you digest these 12 metrics, I want you to ask yourself this final question and really consider how you can use this framework to strengthen your environmental reporting starting today. Is your tailings inventory merely a bureaucratic checklist to satisfy a reporting requirement, or is it a transparent, active blueprint for averting catastrophe? Because at the end of the day, the numbers you put in these columns tell the true story of your operational integrity. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.